Okay, we're ready to go.
So, The Transformers, the movie, 1986. That's the name for the first Transformers movie. And in my opinion, it's the best Transformers movie, but that's still not saying a whole lot. Because basically, the point of this movie is the same as all the Transformer movies, and that's money. Lots of dirty money. Because Hasbro, they're selling all these toys. And they're like, oh shoot, the kids have all the toys. We need to make more toys to sell, get more money. So they decided to come up with this movie, and their plan was just to murder, just kill off all the characters they could, and put new ones in, so they can sell new toys. So yeah, it's pretty shameless, but it's a Transformers movie. So this movie takes place in the distant year of 2005, or at least what the 80s thought 2005 was. So it's in between the second and the third season of the original Transformers series, and it's been 20 years since the first episode in this series. So the opening scene is just nuts. It just shows like this planet. There's all these robots. You see like little kids running around, and then this big Death Star thing comes out of nowhere and just eats the planet. Just starts sucking the people up, and they're just all dying. People are screaming, and yeah, it just eats the whole planet. And that's the first thing. That's just the mood right there, because tons of people die in this film. So while that's going on, it explains how at this point of the series, the Autobots live on Earth and they're at peace with the humans, and there's no Decepticons on Earth. But Cybertron is taken over by the Decepticons. And in the old show, the Autobots used to travel back and forth between the planets to have battles and stuff, which you don't see in the modern movies. But on one of the moons of Cybertron, you see the original Autobot cast, and they're planning an attack on the Decepticons. But as usual, Laserbeak, the Decepticon, is spying on them, just like he does in every episode. So the Autobots never learn, but Megatron knows all their secret plans because the stupid bird is watching them, and he's not even hiding. But they fly off back to Earth to go get more supplies or whatnot to begin their assault, but they get hijacked by Megatron and friends, and this is when the movie gets sweet, because Megatron transforms into a gun and he shoots somebody and he doesn't miss. It's the first time he hasn't missed. And it's pretty hard to watch this scene if you're a huge fan of the show, because you see a lot of your favorite characters get like they just get murdered. Like Megatron just goes and blows off Ironhide's head. It's just a mess. So they fly back to Earth. Yeah, like I said, this movie's a mess. They fly to Earth, and that's when we get to meet all the new characters. They're just chilling on Earth at Autobot City. And the new hero, his name's Hot Rod. He's a sports car, and he's hanging out with Daniel. And Daniel, he's the son of Spike Witwicky, which was the main human of the original series. But he's a little kid now, and they're like, oh, sweet, the spaceship's coming. And then they find out the spaceship's been hijacked by the Decepticons. And this is where the best Transformers fight ever happens, because everyone just run around. Autobots and Decepticons are dying. They're shooting each other. Everyone's favorite characters there. People are getting their heads crushed. The city transforms into a base, and this battle just goes on forever. Eventually, the next day, Optimus Prime shows up. The battle's still going on. It's been like a day, and the Dinobots are there. And the Dinobots don't do anything like they always do, but Optimus Prime comes out, and Connor, you know how like the Transformers movies, they're really famous for having like epic soundtracks, songs playing when they're having huge battles.
Yeah.
Well, this one plays like some Journey impersonator. Like, let me pull up the song for you real quick. So like, keep in mind everybody's been like killed at this point.
So you mean like with lyrics?
Yeah, like with lyrics. Like,
oh, that's freaking weird.
Yeah, so you're expecting like something epic to happen, and this is just what plays.
You got the touch. You got the power. Yeah.
It doesn't match at all, but like it's super 80s. This is the most 80s movie that ever 80'd. I mean, there's a scene where Optimus Prime tells Casey Kasem to start the countdown. Like, this is just all 80s. So it's playing that song, and they're having a lightsaber fight. They've never used lightsabers, but it's a lightsaber. It makes the same sound effects. And Optimus Prime beats Megatron, and he's about to just execute him right there. But then Hot Rod's like, oh, no way I can help, which he doesn't help. He just gets put in a headlock by Megatron, and Megatron shoots the crap out of Prime.
And then a guy, like a human, gets put in a headlock.
No, Hot Rod's a human. He's a robot.
Oh, okay. I wasn't paying attention.
No, it's fine. You're not supposed to with these movies.
Okay.
So, what happens is Megatron shoots Optimus Prime till he dies. Optimus Prime, before he dies, he pushes Megatron off the building, and Megatron basically dies at that point. So, like, the first hour of the movie, and, like, everybody's dead at this point. So, the Decepticons, they retreat, and while they're flying away in their spaceship, apparently there's too much weight on the spaceship, so they have to let people go, and Starscream, being Starscream, goes, and he throws Megatron off. So, we finally get to see Starscream kill Megatron, because he's been talking about that since the first episode. And, yeah. Down on Earth, Optimus Prime dies, but before he dies, he pulls out this magic orb out of his chest. It's just been chilling there the whole time in the cab. And he's like, only this can light our darkest hour. I will give it to you, Ultra Magnus, my old friend. Which, Ultra Magnus has not showed up in any episodes at this point. I don't know why he's Optimus Prime's old friend. But he gives it to Ultra Magnus, and he becomes the new leader of the Autobots. So in space, Megatron's floating around, and he runs into the big planet that ate that other planet at the beginning of the movie. Remember that? And it turns out that's the Citizen Kane of this movie. It's played by Orson Welles. His name's Unicron. And he takes Megatron and he turns him into Galvatron, which is just a purple version of Megatron with a goatee, who's voiced by Leonard Nimoy. So then he tells Galvatron that basically he has to work for him, and he has to get the Matrix of Leadership for him, because the Matrix of Leadership is the only thing that can kill Unicron. So instead of getting the Matrix of Leadership, Galvatron and all his new homies, they fly back to Cybertron, and the first thing he does, he just blows up Starscream, because Megatron always wanted to do that as well. I'm really upset that that was never put in the new Transformer movies about how Starscream and Megatron hated each other. I think they missed out a lot of stuff with that. So all the Decepticons go back to Earth, and they start chasing down the Autobots. And the Autobots, they get split up all Empire Strikes Back ways. So they just kind of split up and crash on 2 different planets. Meanwhile, up in another part of space, Unicron shows up and he starts eating more moons. And on one of the moons, it's got Jazz, Bumblebee, and Spike. They're hanging out there. And for some reason, they have this bomb inside the moon in case they need to blow it up. So before Unicron eats the moon, they blow up the moon, and it doesn't do any effect on them. And then Unicron goes and eats Bumblebee and everybody. So yeah, more people are dead. So once he goes back to Hot Rod, and he's with this Autobot named Cup. Like, they spent 5 minutes on that name. Oh, what should we call this character? How about Cup? Cup, that's awesome. And they're on the planet Quintessa, which plays a pretty big part in the Transformer universe. It's full of these weird xenomorph squid people, and they're the ones that built the Transformers, but eventually the Transformers beat them, so it's just kind of a waste planet. And while they're there, they get stuck in this prison, and it's ruled by this weird spinning face guy, and he just, like, executes everyone. He's really creepy looking, but he always, like, will interview you, and if he thinks you're innocent, you get fed to a bunch of sharks. And while they're in prison, they meet one of the robots who was on the planet that got destroyed at the beginning of the movie. And he's just kind of there for exposition. He explains who Unicron is and stuff. And then he gets eaten by a bunch of sharks. So meanwhile, outside the evil base of the sharks and Quintessons, the Dinobots are hanging out. They're not doing anything. They're just being idiots like they always are. And they meet Wheelie. So Wheelie, he was the little, like, RC car from the Michael Bay Transformer movies. And, like, I thought he was annoying in those. But in this show, Wheelie is the most annoying character, I think, ever. Like, he beats Jar Jar. It's terrible. Everything he says is just atrocious. It'll just make your voice cringe. And he's like, oh, we can be friends, and I'll kill the Quintessons for you. So the Dinobots show up with Wheelie, and they save Cup and Hot Rod. And Wheelie, even though he's just like a little kid, he's like, oh, I have this giant star cruiser. We can use this to go find your friends. So that's what they do. They go to the planet of Junk, where the other Autobots are. And Ultra Magnus is down there, and he gets attacked by the Decepticons. And what originally happened in this scene was that the Decepticons were going to use some kind of weird laser rope to like tie up all his limbs and rip him apart. But they decided that was a little too dark, so they just have him get explode. But you can still see in the footage like the different things they would use to animate him getting his limbs ripped off. You can still see all that, which is pretty cool. But Ultra Magnus dies, and Galvatron takes the Matrix leadership and leaves. And they're like, oh no, the Matrix is gone. And then they get attacked by the natives, who are called the Junkians. And basically they're just like a bunch of like gay bikers. Their leader's name is Retgar. He's voiced by Eric Idle. And he's pretty annoying as well, but not as bad as Wheelie. And he also has 2 laser guns in a very awkward position of his body. They look like nipples. But they start having a little chase there, and they play, I kid you not, they start playing Weird Al Yankovic's song Dare to Be Stupid. Like, it does not fit at all. It makes no... I think what happened was they just like called up Weird Al. This is in the 80s, so he's not famous yet. And they're like, we need you to write a song about Transformers. No, I'll write Dare to Be Stupid because Transformers are stupid. So you get to listen to Weird Al singing about how dumb the movie is while they're having a huge car chase. But eventually Cup, Hot Rod, and the Dinobots show up. They're like, don't worry, we know how to stop the Junkians. We'll just give them food. So they give them these little granola bars and they become friends. And the Junkians are like, oh, we're friends now because you give us food. You want us to fix your Ultra Magnus? And they're like, sure. And they just put it together like it's a freaking Lego set. They didn't think to do that for Optimus Prime, but Ultra Magnus will just click his limbs back together. So then they're all like, well, what do we do now? Galvatron has the Matrix leadership. Well, let's go find them. So the Junkians have a spaceship as well, and they all fly off to space. So in space, Galvatron, he's on Unicron, and he's like, hey, Unicron, I have the Matrix leadership. The only thing that can kill you, you're my slave now. And then Unicron's like, I don't think so. And then he transforms from a planet into his big robot form, which is kind of weird because he's a giant robot, but his mouth doesn't move when he talks. And he just starts shredding up Cybertron. And at this battle, you're supposed to just expect that all the Decepticons die because you don't see any of the original Decepticons after this fight. So that happens, and the Autobots show up, and they fly their spaceship right through Unicron's eye. Except the Dinobots, you get ejected and start literally like kicking his giant butt. It's a really awkward scene. Looks kind of weird. But after that, they go inside, and Hot Rod and Galvatron have a little battle, and I think they fight with lightsabers again. And at the end, Rodimus, well, Hot Rod, I mean, takes the Matrix of leadership, and it starts glowing blue, and he becomes Rodimus Prime. Which the only difference between Rodimus Prime and Hot Rod is, one, the name. One of them has a deeper voice. And when he transforms, a random semi-truck trailer comes out of nowhere and clicks onto the back of him. Which makes no sense because he's a sports car. Sports cars don't do that. So they use the Matrix leadership. Unicron just blows up, and his severed head becomes one of the moons. Which is like really creepy. I mean, I don't think I want to look up into the sky every day and see a giant severed head with 2 missing eyes looking at me all the time. But they just kind of blow up. It starts playing more 80s music. And they're just like, oh, we won. This is a new season of Transformers. See you next time. And that was the original Transformers movie.
Okay.
It was a piece of art.
Sounds like it. It's like I was trying to picture some of that. It's like hard.
Yeah, dude, it's messed up. Like, one of the scenes, Starscream has to blow off his foot because his head's about to get crushed by some giant thing. It's, like, the beginning of the movie is, like, really dark, and then, like, halfway through, it just comes back to, like, 5-year-old stuff. So it's, like, 2 movies in one. It's a really awkward thing to watch. Like, if you're gonna watch it, after the battle, like, after Optimus Prime dies, you can just stop right there. I mean, that's the best parts.
Huh.
Yep. So it's a piece of work, and sadly, it's my favorite Transformers movie. So just keep that in mind.
Did they continue the animated series after?
Yeah, it continued for a few more seasons. The season 3, which was after it, was all about Hot Rod and stuff. And eventually, after too many parents complained that Optimus Prime died, they brought Optimus Prime back. And then the show actually went on for a long time. But, like, most of the series afterwards took place in, like, Japan. I don't think there's an English version of it. And the original series actually ended with the Beast Wars cartoon, which was around when I was a kid. So, I mean, it was a long story. There's some guy on the internet who made a video of the whole Transformers story, and it took like 20 minutes. And it was basically just like, oh, there was Decepticons, and then they die, and then there's more Decepticons, and they die. So it's basically the same as Michael Bay's Transformers, but with less Megan Fox.
And Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, no Shia LaBeouf. So, in the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that.